Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello everybody, here we are today. I am reissuing my Zander Road Part 2 video. I was thinking about it recently, thinking about another little thing that I knew about, and suddenly something struck me as a possible connection. So there's a new addition to this video. So for those of you who are new to my channel and you haven't seen the previous Zander Road Part 2, then you'll be watching this and you may not notice the subtle difference. But for those of you who have watched the one before, you may notice a slight difference to this video. So to get on with it, what's going on at Zander Road? Well, basically we have a very foul-smelling fire in the area, roughly, of Avery Salvage and stuff, close by, 4.5 miles away, where there was a foul-smelling fire. And so here, I'm going to tell you all about it in this video. So, this is a document about Mr. Metz, who I talked about in the first video. On 11/15/05, investigations received a note from Captain Rush indicating that he had received an overnight voicemail from Paul Metz. The note indicates that on that night of 11/1/05, he heard a big whoosh and thought it was a power company problem. On 11/18/05, I, Dettering, did leave a voicemail for Mr. Metz's machine and advised him to contact me on my cell phone. On 11/18 at 15:43 hours, I did receive a phone call from the following subject regarding this matter. Paul J. Metz. Metz indicated he has property of approximately 4 1/2 miles due north of Avery's auto salvage yard. He indicated that on 11/1/05 at approximately 17:30 hours, he had been feeding cattle on his property. He stated he heard a loud whoosh and indicated it reminded him of incidents where he had poured gasoline or other highly volatile substances onto a fire. Metz stated that approximately 10 minutes later he smelled something that was similar to wires burning. However, he indicated the smell was not that, but he was unable to describe it, but stated it was very vile smell. He stated the cows had gotten very spooked and he could not get the cows back under control and they had damaged fences. Metz stated he had been in contact with WPS that evening, which is the power company, and there were no problems with the power outages. He stated the wind was blowing out of the south or southwest, which I disagree with and which the weather in the area disagrees with at the time. He indicated his property is located at the intersection of Yambo Creek and Zander Road. He advised me he's usually at the property should I choose to speak with him further. Investigation continues. So this is from a Facebook group, one that a Facebook group created for people that believe Stephen and Brendan were guilty, or at least Stephen was guilty. And this was back probably about maybe 3 months after the first Making a Murderer came out. And this was a statement that Kratz made. And it has puzzled us, kind of, because we never could see what he might be getting at with that statement. But it just seemed like a very odd statement to make. And so we noticed it. Right? So anyway, it says, Ken Kratz says, she was killed on 10/31 only if you believe Avery did it. Otherwise, it could have been as late as 11/9, the day human remains were discovered in the burn pit, which was, well, it wasn't 11/9, it was 11/8 when the remains were found. But the point is if you just saw the report from Mr. Metz, you saw the report there that fire on Zander Road happened on November 1st. Could that be what Kratz is talking about here in this comment? That he knows about Zander Road, and that possibly he's suggesting that could be the other scenario that he's alluding to in this comment. So I just leave that there for you folks to consider. What do you think? Okay, so now we move into the actual interview of Mr. Metz, where they actually go and meet with him. So On Sunday, 11/20/05 at 14:51 hours, I, Dettering, did meet with Paul Metz, previously mentioned in this report, and at his property just west of the intersection of Yambo Creek Road and Zander Road. I had spoken with Metz by telephone about the whoosh from the area of the Avery property. He states that as the crow flies, his property is approximately 4.5 miles from the Averys, and he heard a whoosh. I asked him how he is certain that he heard the whoosh on 11/1/05. He stated he was positive it was 11/1/05 as it was the day after Halloween. Metz indicated between 1700 and 1800 hours, all of his cattle were lined up along a fence line at the southern edge of his property near the road. He stated the air was really heavy that day and that there was a breeze out of the south. He stated he heard a whoosh off in the distance and after a few minutes smelled an odor similar to burning wires. He stated he is self-employed as a commercial electrician and is familiar with burning wires. He stated while the odor was similar to burning wires, it was something different than burning wires. He stated he began to detect the odor of very faintly approximately 5 minutes after the whoosh. He stated his cattle were bothered by the smell to the point of knocking down fences in order to try and get away. He stated he did not see any actual smoke due to the fact that it was dark or almost dark. Metz stated he got in his four-wheeler in an attempt to get his cattle back under control. He stated he got close to Zander Road, traveling east from his property, and the smell got stronger. Metz stated he subsequently had a relative contact with Kewanee Nuclear Plant, but learned they were not online at all that day. He stated WPS was also called within 1 hour of the odor being detected. However, they reported no outage in the area. He stated WPS was actually contacted by his uncle. Anyways, at 2:55 p.m., Paul Metz did provide me with the following written statement. Okay, so skipping a little bit here to the top of this page, I smelled something like wires burning. At this point, all of the cattle ran to the northeast of the property, going through the fences and knocking down the fences at the northeast edge of the property. I just want to point that out. I think it's important, especially when I get to talking about wind direction that day and stuff here. What the Weather Service says that contradicts with what he says, along with the statement about the cattle. Anyways, so, and along with wind speed too. So this statement is signed by Paul J. Metz. Dettering cleared the Metz property to 15:11 hours. He then, instead of heading east on Zander Road, which is where he said the smell was getting stronger. Metz said the smell was getting stronger when he was on his golf cart or whatever. He doesn't. He goes 0.2 miles east on Zander and then makes a right onto Yambo Creek Road and goes south straight to the Avery property. The Avery property was 4.5 miles away from that property, and it's even further away from 3302 Zander Road. So strange. Okay, so 3302 Zander Road west, and you can see right there how very, very close it is to Mr. Metz's property. It's within a mile. This is highly interesting, and I just wanted to point this out here. I'm also going to show you some Google Earth images of the property really close up too. But first I want to talk a little bit more about wind direction, about, and obviously the proximity of these properties and their locations in respect of each other, in terms of the wind blowing and all that. So we're going to show you that right now. Okay, so now we're going to show you right here, that gray dot, that pin is Mr. Metz's house. That little mouse arrow, that is 3302 Zander Road. Now compare those, how those are maybe a half an inch apart compared to how far it was to Avery's, which is down at the bottom there. So it's pretty crazy, but if you got to imagine, Mr. Metz is saying the wind was going in the direction that my mouse is going right now. It's coming up from the bottom there, going from the south into a northeastern direction. So that's what Mr. Metz says was happening. But that doesn't really make sense to me, because that would have been blowing it right through the corner of the property where the cows were running. And somebody has told me that cows have a very, very good sense of smell, and that they are very sensitive to that sort of thing, and would have been able to find the spot that was the least pungent. But anyway, I truly believe that the wind was blowing in the way that my mouse is flowing now. That's what the Weather Service says. I'm going to show you that in a second. The Weather Service says the wind was blowing that way, and that makes a lot of sense, because that 3302 Zander Road is just west of Mr. Metz, and the wind blowing the way that the Weather Service suggests that it was blowing would have blown it right at Mr. Metz. So that's what I think happened there. So here we see an image of Paul Metz's property at 2530 West Zander Road. Okay. You see what this is saying here. It's talking about what the weather report is for that day and what was really happening there according to the weather service. That there was a wind speed of 8 miles an hour. Okay? 8 miles an hour. Okay? That means it would have taken at least 50 minutes or so for the smell to travel from Avery Salvage to this property. About 4.5 miles. I mean, it would have taken a lot longer than 5 or 10 minutes. And and seriously, dude, there's no way he's hearing the whoosh from 4.5 miles away. I mean, it's kind of absurd that he made this claim, and I think maybe that's why Kratz didn't even want to touch this evidence. But that's speculation. But I mean, it is kind of ridiculous claim that he's making. So, I mean, I just seriously doubt you could hear a whoosh like that from 4.5 miles away. So anyways, so we also see that the wind was blowing from a west in a northern direction to the southeast. So how the smoke or smell could have possibly traveled from Avery Salvage is just ridiculous. Okay, because this property was unoccupied, that 3302 Zander Road, it had no residents. It was actually up to be sold, and there was nobody living there. So that makes it prime because their comings and goings aren't going to be as, seen as by nearly as many people. And so that makes it kind of a unique spot. So I think that's where they were kind of planning their initial planting party. But I truly believe that Stephen choosing to leave for Crivets for a weekend or whatever, a couple days or whatever, made them feel bolder, and they decided to move it right to his front doorstep. Hence the whole "we've had a change of plans" thing. So think what you like, but it is strange. Okay, so this is just a public record that basically simply states that the property was sold on 3/31 of 2006, which means it was vacant prior to that. So, and I imagine it was probably vacant for a while, but we'll, move past that. But it was clearly vacant for some time. Anyways, that really just means that, and the fact that it was a month after Brendan's confession, when basically they felt like they had everything locked up and everything was locked up tight, they didn't need anything else. So whatever potentially may have been happening over at 3302 Zander was essentially no longer needed. And so the property could be sold. That's just the kind of the way that looks to me. But whatever you think about it, that clearly tells you the property was sold on 3/31 of 2006, 1 month after Brendan confessed. So now I'm going to show you the Google Earth image of 3302 Zander. So this is 3302 Zander from above, all by itself, and you can see that it's pretty big, piece of property there. But also it's lined by pretty thick wooded area on the east there, okay, and actually some substantial wooded area on the west there even. But you can see it's pretty much far away from for the most part far away from any other residences. And now we're going to move slightly east here and see Mr. Metz. Mr. Metz claims that the wind was coming from this direction. Okay, I just want to say that. Look at the way it's going across his property. This is the northeastern edge of his property right here. Okay, and he's claiming that the wind was coming like this. Okay, in a south and an east, in the north and an east direction, or from the southwest. So if that's true, why are the cows going here? The smell would have been better here if it was blowing from the south, if it was blowing in the way that he's suggesting. So it makes no sense that they would have gone here instead of here, because the smell would have been dissipating here quicker than it would have here. So just wanted to point that out. So that's why I have so much trouble with his statement about it being from the southwest. And also the Weather Service says it was blowing in this direction. Okay? Now that makes sense, because it would be blowing in a direction to blow it down and away from this edge of the property. The wind would be coming like this, right? So this would be the furthest point from the west, and it would be the closest point to the north, which was, if you go the north, it was clear. Or clearer, I should say, because if the wind was blowing this way, it was going to be blowing the smell or whatever and everything in a direction like this, so it would dissipate on this edge quicker. So just wanted to point that out. That's why his statement doesn't really make much sense, and it makes more sense that he heard a whoosh or something from over in this direction, maybe about within a mile or 1.5 miles. So this is where 3302 Zander Road is. And we see just exactly how close it is to Mr. Metz. Very close. It's a half a mile. Would explain how that smell traveled within 5 and 10 minutes to where he smelled it within 5 and 10 minutes. So, because there was a wind speed of only 8 miles an hour. Now, let's also point out how far away Avery Salvage is. It's all the way down there at the bottom of the map, right there. So there's just no way this smell could have traveled the way he's suggesting. But I do believe that he heard a whoosh. I believe that he smelled a foul smell, and I believe his cows freaked out. But I just don't believe they would have freaked out in the way he's saying. If the wind was blowing the way he was saying through the northeast corner of his property, why would they have ran there? What were they thinking? Human burgers. I mean, anyways, so it just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to me that the Weather Service is accurate, and that is the estimate that I'm going to go with. Okay, so here we have the Google Earth image. That right now where the mouse is 3302 Zander Road, and where the mouse is now is Mr. Metz's property. As you can see, he's exactly due east of 3302 Zander. That is Yambo Creek Road. That is Zander Road right there, which they're both on. And then this little road here is called like Rainbow Road or something like that. Rainbow something circle or something like that. So anyways, you can see here, but keep in mind the wind was supposed to be blowing from the top left corner of like this image towards like the bottom right corner of the image. So that would be the wind flow on this. So that's why I say the area at the top right of Mr. Metz's property would have most likely been the clearest. But, the Weather Service says that's the way it was going. I have no idea what possessed Mr. Metz to try to blame the Averys. We all know that in that area they seem to have a bit of an inborn kind of dislike for him. So maybe that's what motivated him. But I think he heard the whoosh, and I think his cows were reacting to something. So that is the new Zander Road Part 2 video. For those who may not have known or didn't, just don't really, hadn't seen the other video and just didn't realize what was new here. The new thing here that was inserted is the screenshot of Ken Kratz and what he said in a Stephen Avery is Guilty group on Facebook. That comment. And I was thinking about it. Because I was thinking about Zander Road being on 11.1. And so I was thinking about that screenshot of what Ken Kratz said about, it was only Stephen if basically it was only Stephen if it happened on 10/31. And then I got to thinking, like I said, I was just thinking like, wait, but the whole thing on Zander Road happened on 11/1. Could that be what Ken Kratz is alluding to? Is that what he was in his mind when he decided to make that statement? Obviously, he was making it amongst people that believe the same way he did, that Stephen Avery was guilty and stuff. But I mean, and he felt comfortable or whatever. But I mean, my point is that did that statement come from a place of knowing about Zander Road? I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, it just seems a little odd. I mean, I just think it's thought-provoking. I'll put it that way. So that's the new and improved Zander Road Part 2 video, repackaged and premiered for y'all. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.